All right, one last look at your traffic and weather for your ride in on this Thursday morning. Only one thing to report out there on the roadways as of right now, and that's stop-and-go traffic between 126 eastbound between Piney Grove Road and I-20, so be careful as you're making your way through there. Today, plenty of sunshine with a high of 77. Similar forecast for tomorrow, mix of cloud and sun with a high of 81 coming up on Saturday. That's your traffic and weather from the Wetzel's Automotive Traffic Center here on the Early Game. Nine o'clock on your Thursday morning. Welcome in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head along with you. No Jack Felcher for the rest of the week as he is actually taking a couple of much-deserved days off for the bye before we get back in the thick of things next weekend, taking on LSU. So once again, our guy Scott Hamilton joining me for the next hour. Scott, thanks for hanging out. How are we doing today, man?
Why do these shows have names? It's all Tyler Head Radio.
So we briefly, or not briefly, I've debated in the past of renaming everything the Tyler Head Sports Experience. I've not pulled the trigger on it yet, but that's a working title that I bring up, especially when I do shows by myself.
I mean, for real, dude, it's impressive. I think you're insane. But I mean, you're 6 hours, 8 hours, 10.
Yeah,
what do you do?
6 hours is just the job that I do here. Then I have to do all the stuff to prepare for the next day at home. So it's more than 6 hours. I work, I don't know, probably somewhere between 10 to 11 hours every single day, if I'm being realistic.
Meanwhile, Terry Ford's getting out of bed right now.
Actually, I don't know where Terry is. He texted me he had to go do something, and I haven't seen him yet this morning. So he's out and about somewhere.
Well, I'm happy to be here and just trying to get ready for, it's already Thursday.
It is Thursday. We're in October. Happy October, by the way. We're over a month into the college football season. We spend the entire off season, right? Basically from when the national championship ends in January, which is later in January now because of the expanded playoff. But we spend the entire next 8 months preparing and speculating and giving our thoughts and rankings and all that kind of stuff. And this season gets here and boom, it goes by in the blink of an eye, and boom, we'll be back in January crowning a national champion before we know it, then looking ahead to the next season. Like, that's just how fast it goes.
Yeah, I don't quite know how to reconcile all of it. I'm still trying to figure out what I'm doing for the next few weeks. I'm looking at the calendar, and I think I'm going to head to LSU next week.
Okay. Now, are you going to Chapel Hill this weekend?
I am going to Chapel Hill.
Are you going to be there for the Ludacris concert?
I will be heading to the People's Republic of Chapel Hill tomorrow. I will not be there for the Ludacris concert at 5 a.m.
Yeah.
Ridiculous time.
Boy, they were really betting on that being a night game, right? Because there's no way Ludacris was going to agree to be playing a concert at 9:30 in the morning.
Shame on his agent for not putting in some kind of disclaimer that in the case of calamity in which a two-time national championship winning coach who is a top 5 preseason team and a 6-time Super Bowl winner are actually playing for last place or to avoid last place, then my client is not obligated to perform before dawn. That's insane. I mean, what the game? It is like, it's like a 6:30 and it's 7 o'clock.
I forget what the time it is. It's really early in the morning because the game kicks off at noon. I think it's on the CW, which shows you what they think of this game between these two programs as of right now. But I don't know why he couldn't do it after the game. For those that aren't aware, Clemson is taking on North Carolina this weekend up in Chapel Hill, which again, before the season started, you can just, we talked about the headlines of it's Dabo Swinney with what might be his best team in the last handful of years, and obviously Bill Belichick with all the headlines that he commands, taking each other on, and, oh, man, this screams like 7:30 ESPN, ABC, or whatever, but both teams are so bad right now. They're like, nah, noon on the CW, and apparently they had this contract with Ludacris to perform before the game, and this has been a deal for months now. But when the game got moved to noon, it's like, oh, well, he's just going to have to perform in the morning, I guess. So I don't know why they couldn't do it after the game, but he's performing in the AM, I guess.
There's a joke in there, and I'm not really prepared to write it about the musical act being perfect because he's also past his prime.
I mean, yeah, he's not putting out the hits like he was back in the day. I mean, he's still, I'm sure, a fun act to see in person.
But the CW, and did you see the meme about it being on the Cartoon Network?
I believe it.
This game should be on the Cartoon. This is. I mean, Tyler, let's explore this for a moment.
All right.
Is this game, the way this game is situated, is it the most shocking development so far this season, given to where our expectations were, how everything would be laid out to this point? What would be second for you right now? I think this is number one.
In terms of
just shock value. If I went back and told, I went back and I told Tyler on August 1st, dude, when North Carolina and Clemson play on October 4th,
yep,
that game is going to be to avoid the basement of the ACC. It's going to be a noon kickoff, and it's going to be on the CW. What would you have told me?
I would have certainly believed that from the North Carolina perspective, not the Clemson perspective, because I thought, they were truly going to be one of the best teams in college football this year. So 50-50, surprise, not surprise. But yeah, here we are. But by the way, I can confirm. So this is called the Chapel Thrill Concert is what it's called. And it will happen 2 hours and 15 minutes before kickoff. So that means it'll be at 9:45 in the morning when he is performing ahead of this game. So
okay, I'm just shocked. I'm shocked. Even this is how bad it is, Tyler. The marketability of having arguably the greatest coach in NFL history is not enough to save this game.
No,
noon kickoff on the CW.
Well, let's be honest. Like Bill Belichick's become an afterthought in a month, right? And there's a lot of pomp and circumstance. And what's that?
That's a good way to put it. You nailed it right there. He's becoming an afterthought. He's no longer a story. We're no longer intrigued by the whole Jordan Hudson thing.
Well, and we were intrigued by that because of how ridiculous it was. But there was like excitement and intrigue. I'm like, okay, he's coming to college football. What's this going to be like? And man, that first drive against TCU in week number 1 was incredible. It's like, oh, hey, maybe he's got this thing figured out. And they've literally done nothing of note since then. In fact, they look like legitimately one of the most terrible teams in college football, to where after about a week or two, and the last time I watched any of North Carolina was them getting drugged by Central Florida. It's like, okay, all right, this isn't really a thing anymore. And I think it's gotten to the point now where you almost kind of forget that he's there until you see him pop up on TV and you're like, oh, or he's on the cover of People magazine with Jordan Hudson. And you're like, oh yeah, that's a thing.
It was Yes Weekly.
Oh,
it was a story about her. The story was about her.
I don't read entertainment magazines. I knew it was one of them. But yes, it was more about her than it was him. Which that in his less than a year tenure at North Carolina, more has been made about his 24-year-old girlfriend than him and the actual football being played, which I think speaks volumes to where things are at right now.
Well, two things. First of all, that opening drive against TCU, he literally had 8 months to prepare for that singular drive.
Yes.
And so it's like coming out of a timeout in basketball. You better score, dude.
Sure.
You better score.
Sure.
But number two, we were fascinated because the whole deal with Jordan Hudson was so off-brand, and it was the first time really the curtain was ever pulled back on Bill Belichick's life, and it was captivating, and it was intriguing, and now we're like, it's just kind of weird and gross now.
Yeah, it is. And again, it's very unfitting to what we think of the character as Bill Belichick. Like he's doing the airplane thing on the beach with her, which everybody's making fun of, and I get a lot of joy and entertainment out of that, because it's like this is just this old, grizzled, hard-nosed football coach that took no nonsense, wouldn't talk to the media, wore hoodies with holes in them, and now dating this 24-year-old girl and suddenly turning into a terrible football coach, which the last couple of years in New England weren't that great. So I guess maybe we could have seen that coming. But yeah, it's just this when he's inevitably done at North Carolina in like, I don't know, 2 years or something like that, the athletic deep dive into this whole saga is going to be fascinating. That's what I look forward to.
2 years. You're giving him 2 more years.
Yeah, maybe that's being generous.
I'm wondering if they pull the cord off this thing maybe in the spring. I mean, I don't know. I think you have to give him 2 years to build a roster. I'll give him that.
Sure.
But roster flips can happen quick, dude.
They can. Well,
they can happen quick.
It was supposed to happen with all the guys they brought in the portal this year, you know, where it's like, oh, wow. And again, they're going with the NFL model and they're bringing in Michael Lombardi and they're doing things that nobody else is doing. Yeah, okay, because I'm sure Alabama, Texas, Georgia, Ohio State never thought of those things, right?
Well, and I think the problem with the roster building is that, think about this, Tyler. He was known as the guy who would, and it became almost to the point of it just being ridiculous, who wouldn't go for the obvious pick.
Yeah.
I see this left guard from Tarleton State who I think can develop into being an all-pro. I can coach him up.
Well, that was always the joke, is that Bill Belichick could take a team of like sixth graders and turn them into Super Bowl champions as long as Tom Brady was there, you know, because how many years did Tom Brady throw to wide receivers you had no clue who they were outside of Randy Moss and Julian Edelman most of the time?
And speaking of, Tom Brady presumably has no eligibility left, but I've been watching Chad Powers.
Okay, how's that? I've not dove into that yet.
It's ridiculous, but I don't hate it. It's actually, look, I never got into the Ted Lasso stuff. I don't know if you watched it.
Terry's a big Ted Lasso fan.
Well, I could see the comparisons there.
Sure.
We'll discuss that another time. But
sure.
I hear how that show has so much heart and it's so, honest and endearing.
Yeah.
This show ain't like that, bro.
Right.
It's got a little bit of heart. I mean, you feel for the character a little bit because Glenn Powell's such a good actor.
Yeah.
But other than that, it's just ridiculousness. And I'm here for it. I actually like it. It has a really good cast.
Okay.
The cast is outstanding.
I'll have to I've checked. Now there's a bye week. Maybe I'll check that out, heading into the weekend or something like that. I've seen the commercials for it, and, Glenn Powell's fine. But yeah, maybe I'll check that out now that I got a little bit more time this week. So I'll get back to you on that one.
He's going to be, and I just got this information this morning. I'm probably late to the party. They're making a Miami Vice, another movie. They're going to reboot it, take it back to the 80s. He's going to play. It's coming out in 2 years. He's going to play Crockett, and Michael B. Jordan is going to be Tubbs. And I'm all in.
Why do we have to reboot everything?
Dude, I'm all in for this because the other Miami Vice movie, it was good, but it shouldn't have been Miami Vice. It should have been its own deal.
Okay.
It had a lot of weird things with the villains and all this, and we're not getting into that, but I'm all in, dude.
All right. We'll get into some South Carolina statistics through the first month of the season coming up on the other side. But, Scott, you've never been with me for the extra point. We do always have to start things off with our Sandstorm Pick-Me-Up.
Time to get hyped. Here's your 9 a.m. Sandstorm. Sponsored by George Sink Injury Lawyers. Just call all nines.
It is time for your 9 a.m. Sandstorm Pick-Me-Up, brought to you by South Carolina's largest injury law firm, George Sink Injury Lawyers. If you've been hurt in the car or at work, call George Sink now at 803 all nines. Won't be here in Sandstorm for a couple more weeks because they'll be on the road, but always nice to get things kicked off every single morning with a little bit of a Sandstorm Pick-Me-Up. Again, we'll dive into South Carolina's. You have a thought on Sandstorm, Scott?
No, that was actually pretty cool, man.
Yeah.
I mean, why isn't it playing softly right now in the background while you do that?
Because
it's a production issue, man.
Because the limit of the song ran out on our hotkey. It's only a small snippet of the song for that read.
No, man, you know better. You're a professional. You always got to have extra padding. Padding. It's called padding.
Well, see, I read what I needed to read, and then the song just kind of trails off after that.
See, and you should fade into the commercial with Sandstorm.
Well, we usually do it at the beginning of the show. I usually don't do it at the end of the segment, but we got down the Chapel Bill rabbit hole and just kind of went from there. So
that was my bad.
It's all good. Everything's on the fly. We'll get into some South Carolina statistics coming up next as we continue on with the extra point. He is Scott Hamilton of the Post and Courier. I'm Tyler Head on Euro Thursday here on The Game. All right, welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head, Scott Hamilton, the Post and Courier, hanging out with you on your Thursday here on The Game as we navigate you through your bye week. And as we do with the bye week, Scott, we've been taking a look a lot this week at what Carolina's done through its first 5 games and what that kind of means for things going forward. We talked with Parker Fleming last week, who's Stats of War, CFB graphs, and all that, really into advanced analytics when it comes to college football. And I asked them the question of at what point in the year do the numbers kind of become indicative of what a team is? And he says pretty much usually after about 5 games, which for Carolina going into the bye week, you're at that point. You're 5 games in, 4 of those against FBS opponents, all those being Power 4 opponents, the one exception being South Carolina State. So the numbers you have are probably pretty indicative of what you're going to be going forward. So I kind of went through and picked out the extreme ends, the very good things and the very bad things about South Carolina offensively and defensively. And it probably wouldn't surprise you that a lot of the statistics for the offense teeter on bad more than they do good.
Well, exactly. And that trickles over to the defense. I mean, when you're not being when you're not able to extend drives, your defense is on the field more. Any shortcomings on the defensive side are likely going to trickle back to that. Let me ask you this: of all the numbers that you're looking at, though, and there are positives.
There are positives. It's not all bad. There are some goods.
Which one did you really say, you know what, this is something they can hang their hat on? For me, it was turnovers.
That's what I was going to say when it comes to the offense. So they are 27th in the nation in total turnovers offensively with only 4 on the season, one of those being an interception by Lenore Sellers before he got hurt in the Vanderbilt game when they dropped that nose tackle into coverage. And this was a really big point that we talked about a lot in the offseason was, hey, you got to protect the football. Last year, Sellers had some turnovers. Sellers had quite a few turnovers when it came to throwing interceptions and also being loose with the football, having it popped out. And that was an area of concern we had coming into the year that, knock on wood, and hopefully this continues through the final 7 games, they've been really good at not giving the ball away to the other team. So that's a marked improvement from a year ago that they're legitimately one of the better teams in the country when it comes to not turning the football over.
Yeah, and you look at it, Sellers has 1 interception, Doty has 1 interception.
Mm-hmm.
They're 17th in the country when it comes to turnover margin, thanks to that defense. So, I mean, and it goes back to what I told you before, Tyler. Turnovers, time of possession, converting third downs. Now, they're struggling with the other stuff.
They are.
They're struggling with the other stuff. But if you're not giving the opposing team free possessions via a turnover, then that's pretty big.
Yeah, and since you're talking about third downs and time of possession, that's 2 of the things they're absolutely the worst at. And I kind of based my metric here. I didn't write down every single statistic on offense because there's some things that are kind of in like the 40s and 50s with. It's like, okay, that's not terrible, but it's not great either. I went with the extreme ends of like, okay, are you top like 40-ish in things, or are you in the bottom 30 to 40-ish in things? And third downs and time of possession are 2 of the things they're absolutely the worst at. They're converting 35% of their third downs on offense, which is 104th in the nation. And time of possession, they only average 26 minutes and 15 seconds possessing the ball every single game. That's 128th out of 136 teams in college football.
Yeah, and how much of that goes back to the running game, to the offensive line?
Because you can't control the clock if you can't run the ball and you're going 3 and out and things like that, or having short possessions. Guess what? You don't control the clock. And time of possession can be a bit of an overrated stat because you can hold on to the ball for a long drive, but if you're kicking field goals and you're only getting so much out of that. But for Carolina, I think it is very indicative of how stop and go this offense is, because you're not able to sustain drives, control the clock, because you can't run the ball effectively outside of really the last drive against Kentucky, which I don't know how many backups Kentucky had in at that point, or how much they cared to try and stop what South Carolina's doing because the game was out of hand. Like, again, this has been a consistent issue, and unfortunately, and they are, by the way, in case you're wondering, 126th in rush yards per game, averaging just 99 per game on the season. That's not something that you just kind of wave a magic wand and suddenly gets better coming out of the bye week.
How much of that rushing I don't want to say let down, but it's not the numbers that we had expected at this point. How much of that would you attribute to Sellers? So, I mean, I know that's been a big discussion over the last few weeks. Are they having runs designed for him? Is he not? Is he thinking too much in the pocket? Yada, yada, yada. How much of that do you attribute to him or just to an impotent run game?
I think it's an impotent run game overall. We saw this past weekend. He's still very capable of doing the same kind of things that he did a year ago. And I get it. Defenses are scheming for him, spying sometimes as much as two guys to prevent him from killing them on the ground. But at the same time, he's special, right? And even if you have the plan to try and stop him, he's proven time and time again that he can skirt around those plans and still make things happen. But, and I was there in attendance on Saturday that every time Mike Shula caught a run up the middle, the crowd started booing, right? Because we've seen that story enough times this year to know that's not going to suddenly start working, right? Like you don't have an effective enough blocking unit up front, and you don't have the running backs that can make guys miss the way that they need to get enough out of those carries that go up the middle to where that's almost become kind of a lost point in this offense this year, 5 games in.
And he's not really giving good explanation over this. I could use some clarity. I mean, I get setting it up, using the run up the middle just to set something up for later, a play action or something. I mean, something exotic. I don't know.
Sure.
But I don't get the sense that that's what they're doing with that. I think they're running up the middle because he legitimately thinks they're going to get 8, 9, 10, 12 yards.
I feel like he's waiting for it to pop, right? And okay, they had a couple rushing touchdowns this past weekend, against Kentucky. But when you look at the whole of the entire game, it was not nearly as successful as they needed to be with running backs. In fact, the majority of Matthew Fuller's yards, I think he had 48 on the game. Think about 36 of those came on that final drive where they salted the clock away. So it's not an area of the game that you can rely on, but Shula does keep going back to the well, hoping that that's something that's going to suddenly start working. But I think we've seen a big enough sample size to know, especially now that you're dealing with injuries on the offensive line and having different starting combinations up there. I don't think it's something that's going to magically change starting with LSU or going forward.
Here's something, and I'm kind of pivoting a little bit here, but I'm looking at the receiving totals. And we keep waiting for a Josh Simon guy to pop up, to take that place in the offense. That's something that's missing big time.
Ventrevious Jacobs has had a couple of good games in a row.
Yeah, well, 4 different tight ends have caught a pass, at least 2 passes this year for 14.
Yep.
That's encouraging because Jacobs, to your point, is the leading receiver. He's got 18 receptions. That's 7 more than Nick Harbor. He's second. But it's almost like tight end by committee. Can one of those guys step up and become that Josh Simon type guy?
Yeah, and we talked a lot in the offseason that like Brady Hunt kind of maybe emerged as the guy in that group that could kind of fill that role. Was on the team a year ago, had some good rapport with Sellers already, and he's dealt with some injuries as well, so that certainly doesn't help. But yeah, nobody's really kind of taken the reins of the the tight end room. As we've seen a little bit of Brady Hunt, a little bit of Jordan Dingle, Mo Brown, who got the first reception of the season, by the way, is mixed in there as well. Michael Smith's been kind of banged up. But, it's definitely been a by-committee approach, much like running back's been up to this point, as neither room has really popped up to this point.
Yeah, I'm looking at those numbers now. And in Faison, I see improvement in Faison each and every week. I thought he looked much better the other night. And you can see that explosiveness that we kept hearing about in the offseason while we waited to find out if he'd be eligible or not. But Attaway, I think Attaway's been a pleasant surprise so far. I'm very, very pleased with how he's played.
I'm intrigued to see because nobody's RB1 right now. It's been by committee, and Matthew Fuller's gotten a lot more carries the past couple weeks. And I know he's somebody whose abilities they've been really high on. And last year Rocket Sanders commanded that running back room, so it's understandable why Fuller didn't get a lot of carries, but it really seems like they're thinking pretty highly of him to where, again, I'm not ready to say he's RB1, but if he's getting the majority of the carries in the next couple weeks, I certainly wouldn't be surprised by that.
Got to get the running game going, brother. Got to get the running game going. Got to get some continuity across the offensive line and some consistency. And I'm still waiting for somebody to step up and take control of that unit.
Yeah, and look, the defenses you're facing aren't going to get any easier. And LSU's got their own struggles on offense, but that defense is playing well. And you're going to have a tough time doing a lot of things against them, especially running the football. So, again, I feel like you're 5 games in, you kind of are what you are, and you hope it can get maybe a little bit better, but it's not something where you're suddenly going to say, all right, we're going to start running for $180, 200 yards on a weekly basis against any of these teams in the SEC. That's just not going to happen, more likely than not. So you're going to have to either, obviously lean on your pass game or use the short passing game with screens and dump offs and stuff like that to basically take the place of your running game that's not there right now.
And you've got to be able to possess the football against LSU.
Yes.
Because that defense at LSU is pretty good. Their offense is not good, dude.
No.
Their offense is not good at all. And people are writing off South Carolina going into that game. I'm only really concerned because of the environment. I think, but if you were to play this game on a neutral site,
sure,
I think it would. I think the expectations would be much more level. By the way, what do you think the spread will be on that game?
Ooh, again, neither offenses is on fire right now. I'd probably say like LSU by like maybe 8, maybe 7 to 8, probably. I mean, by the way, I would take the under in this one because I don't know if either team scores more than 24 points. So I'm not going to put a wide margin on that. But I'd say like LSU, maybe like 7 to 7.5, something like that.
And most of that's because it's at Death Valley
at night. Yeah,
at night.
Yeah. If this was a 3:30 game, maybe I knock a point or two off of that. But LSU would be the favorite, no doubt about that. But yeah, I don't see them going in and getting blown out because LSU has their own problems on offense. Again, that game coming up a week from Saturday as we navigate through the bye week, and we're kind of taking a chance to reflect on the first month of the college football season. Who wins the September Heisman, in our opinion? We'll dive into that coming up next as the Extra Point rolls along. Tyler Head, Scott Hamilton, the Post and Courier, here in your Thursday on the Game. All right, welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head, Scott Hamilton, the Post and Courier, along with you here on your Thursday on the Game. Coming up in about 10 minutes, by the way, your next chance to win $1,000 in our national cash contest. Just be listening out for the keyword and be ready to text it to 95819 for your next chance to win $1,000. We're officially a month into the college football season. Really, I guess a little over a month. We started in August, the end of the month, and now we're the full way through September. October coming up. We're in October. The first games of October getting started this weekend, and I'm a firm believer every single year, Scott, in crowning somebody the September Heisman, as in who was the most impressive player through the first month of the college football season. 9 times out of 10, that guy doesn't usually go on to win the Heisman Trophy coming up in December, but it is interesting to see who sets themselves apart in the first month of the season. Now, you are a Heisman voter yourself. How much stock do you take into what happens in the first month of the season?
I think it's part of an overall narrative. I mean, it's like a presidential campaign where you have to win. You have to win the primary and so forth, and you have to come out of the gate strong, especially if you're not entering the season as a known commodity. But I've been burned, man. There was one time I gave away the September Heisman, and I was grossly embarrassed. And there was one other time I gave away the September Heisman, and I was validated when it was actually presented. But the irony was I didn't vote for that guy. I had him second when it came time.
So who embarrassed you? Which one was that?
Leonard Fournette.
Oh, okay. It was 2015? 2015? Okay. All right.
He came out and just destroying people, and then he ended up just not being great, and not even being a great dude the way he acted. I think it was the Florida game where he wasn't going to play, and then there was a fight, so he decided, I'm healthy now, I can play, and it was just awful.
Now, who were you validated but didn't end up voting for at the very end?
Lamar Jackson.
Okay, all right. Now,
Lamar Jackson.
He was the best player over that entire season.
Well, his September was stupid. Remember, he hurdled over the guy at Syracuse. Down at the goal line, and I'm like, this guy's special, and he had one of the best seasons, one of the most special seasons that we've ever seen in the history of college football. I mean, he was ridiculous. But I did something, and they're trying to get more voters to do this. I waited until immediately after the conference championship games before I voted. And I voted for Deshaun Watson.
Okay. Now,
great season.
Here's the thing, and obviously Clemson is the rival, and we know Deshaun Watson hasn't turned out to be the greatest dude in the world, but I think he is definitely on that short list of best college football players that didn't win the Heisman Trophy. You could have made the argument for several seasons where he could have won it. I'll say Christian McCaffrey, somebody on that list, Peyton Manning as well. But yeah, Deshaun Watson, you're not alone in thinking he could have very well won the Heisman Trophy in multiple seasons.
Yeah, I went on Feinbaum. We talked about it. God, I guess it was maybe a year or two later, and he said, he had voters' remorse as well, that he wished that he had reconsidered. You ever heard the story, though, about the year you had Johnny Majors, the great former coach at Tennessee and at Pittsburgh, great player, by the way, and they would talk about who should he finished second in the Heisman Trophy that year. I want to say to Paul Hornung, who actually won it with a losing season at Notre Dame, and they would say, should you have won the Heisman Trophy? And he goes, no, should have been Jim Brown.
Okay.
Jim Brown. Yeah. Great story.
Yeah, that's cool.
I didn't tell it well.
Yeah. Well, we got a long way to go until we actually see who's going to be on the stage in New York coming up in December, but it is interesting to look at who stood out the most through the first month of the college football season. So if I'm giving you 3 finalists, we'll announce our winners in a moment. If I'm giving you 3 finalists right now, who is on your stage for the September Heisman?
Okay, the September Heisman. I have to make sure I preface it with that. Otherwise, the black helicopters come from the Heisman Trust, because we're not allowed to talk about who we're voting for. Mine are kind of different. I really like what I saw. Dante Moore at Oregon, quarterback at Oregon, did a wonderful job on a big stage against Penn State. I'm actually, and this one's going to shock some people, I'm actually going to go Ty Simpson.
Okay. I don't think that's an unpopular pick to make, and look, he's looked surgical since that opening game against Florida State and looked phenomenal this past weekend against Georgia. So you're not wrong for that.
And then here's number 3, and I had John Mentier up until he got injured. Okay,
all right.
I had him. Diego Pavia.
All right, now we're getting a little controversial. Numbers are great, by the way. He is having a phenomenal season, and I prefaced this yesterday with Bill that because again he idolizes Johnny Manziel, right? Like if you Diego Pavia want to truly make a run at the Heisman Trophy, go have your Heisman moment against Alabama in Tuscaloosa, just like Johnny Manziel did, and that campaign will skyrocket. I promise you.
You're exactly right. You're exactly right. Now they still need to win some games.
They do.
They can't finish 6-6 and expect him to win the Heisman Trophy, even with a win over Alabama.
If they're capable of beating Alabama, they're going to do better than 6-6. That would be their 6th win of the year, by the way. But like theoretically, if you're a 8-4 to 9-3 Vanderbilt team, you could have the Heisman Trophy winner. I know this is the most ridiculous thing to ever say, considering the history of Vanderbilt football. But you win 8 or 9 games, Diego Pavia is certainly in that mix. I feel like.
But it's 8 or 9 games in the SEC too.
Yes, and that's even tougher. And again, depending on who you do what against at all, because you have to have moments to be the Heisman Trophy winner, right? You have to have moments that stand out, that show up on the highlight tape every single year. And again, Manziel's moment was that crazy, ridiculous flip touchdown that he had to, it wasn't Mike Evans, it was the other guy, Johnson, I forget his first name, that helped them win that game in Tuscaloosa over number 1 Alabama. So similar opportunity for Diego Pavia. I like where you're coming from with all those picks. My list is a little bit different, though. I will agree on Dante Moore because his numbers are incredible, and he had a big game this past weekend on a huge stage in the whiteout against Penn State. Ahmad Hardy, who we know very well for what he did against Carolina a couple weeks ago. Dude has more yards after contact than most running backs have yards on the season. Like, dude's slippery. That's something you can't teach. You either have that or you don't. And then, here's the controversy. How about Trinidad Chambliss? Only started 3 games, but over 300 yards in all those games. Big wins. I mean, LSU this past weekend, I get it's a smaller sample size and his numbers aren't as big, but like, dude's balled out every game that he's had, and there's no way he's relinquishing that starting job when Austin Simmons is fully healthy again.
I love that list, and I love the Trinidad Chambliss. I mean, let's stay on him for a moment. That's no joke of a defense. LSU, for all its faults, and here we are talking about a team with only 1 loss.
Right.
That's a really good defense, dude.
Yeah.
And he went out there and he operated, man. I mean, he cooked. I love his game. And where was he? He wasn't at Kennesaw State, was he?
He was at Ferris State. Ferris State. Which
I don't even know where that is.
They're like, I think they're in Michigan. They're like a D2 powerhouse. They've won a lot of national championships, and he only started 1 season. But, you know, and look, this is where you give credit to Lane Kiffin, too, for finding this dude or whoever found him and bringing him in and helping him be successful at this level. Because, again, much like, you know, like the Kyle Trasks and the Jake Fromms that were sitting on the bench until they got their opportunity because somebody else got hurt, I don't see this guy relinquishing that starting job when Austin Simmons comes back, which he may already be fully healthy, but Chambliss has shown you no reason to take him out.
You see, I'm looking at this now. And it's absolutely blowing my mind. Okay, he was actually at Ferris State for 3 years.
Yes, but only started 1.
He only started 1. This isn't like a Cam Newton coming out, you know, and because everybody knew about Cam. Cam had gone to Florida. Cam was on the same team with Tebow.
Yeah, and Cam was like a 5-star coming out of high school. He was already a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, and his dad's not going to try to sell him to Mississippi State or something if he's just some dude coming out of JUCO.
Which, by the way, real quick, in the world of NIL, getting Cam Newton for $200,000, steal.
Absolute bargain.
Yeah.
But this guy, I mean, this guy is just blowing me away. Everything I see from him, the way he stepped in, and Austin Simmons is the dude.
Yeah,
I mean, that's all we heard all offseason.
He was supposed to be. He was supposed to be, and he played fine. He had a little bit turnover prone, but you know he wasn't like terrible. But Trinidad Chambliss is better, and I have no problem saying that. We'll announce our September Heisman on the other side, and also maybe take a look at Coach of the Year so far as well as a wrap up the hour. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Scott Hamilton with you on your Thursday on the Game. right, welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Scott Hamilton wrapping up the hour here on your Thursday on the game. Handing out some awards a month into the season. We gave our finalists for the September Heisman. Now we have to decide who's going to win the thing. So out of your group, which again was Ty Simpson, Dante Moore, and Diego Pavia, all quarterbacks, who is Scott Hamilton handing the September Heisman to?
I think it's got to be Dante Moore.
Okay.
I mean, Oregon has looked fantastic to the start of the season. There's a lot of pressure on that team. There's a lot of pressure on him as the quarterback of that team. And to go into that environment, and look, we could lay it at the feet of James Franklin and say that loss is on him, and it's what James Franklin does, lose to ranked teams on the biggest stages. But Dante Moore looked Heisman-esque in that moment.
Yeah.
He's my guy.
Yeah, as much as I want to go Trinidad Chambliss, I think it's hard to argue with Dante Moore. His numbers are the best out of the group by far. And again, he has that defining moment so far against, Penn State, with that win on Saturday. So, yeah, I'll probably have to roll with him as well, though I think as the season rolls along, where I'm assuming Trinidad Chambliss is going to continue to start, I think there's a very realistic possibility that in December it could be him if he continues to play at this level. But both those guys are going to have the opportunity against a lot of really good teams down the stretch to continue to put up these numbers, have moments and stuff like that. But, I don't think you're wrong in thinking Dante Moore is probably the guy after the month of the season, though I feel like we didn't really talk about Oregon for the first 3 weeks because they were playing nobody outside of throttling Oklahoma State. But, when they finally appeared on a big stage, they stepped up to the task, and Dante Moore was a big reason for that.
Yeah, and they've grown acclimated to life in the Big Ten pretty good, I would say.
Yeah, well, and that was kind of the question everybody had is, well, can this team handle the physicality and the grind of a Big Ten schedule? Well, they've done so far because, you don't count the Rose Bowl as a conference game. They've not lost a game in conference play. In fact, they haven't lost a game in the regular season since they have joined the Big Ten so far.
And haven't they beaten Ohio State at least once?
They beat them last year in their game in Eugene, then obviously lost the rematch. But, yeah, they were 13-0, the number one seed last year, and off to a 5-0 start this year. So, yeah, Oregon's doing just fine in the Big Ten. So
in the travel.
Yeah, and that was the thing. Is like, okay, can you handle back and forth to the Midwest and the East Coast and all that kind of stuff? And so far, so good. So we'll hand our September Heisman to Dante Moore. How about Coach of the Year? Through the first month of the season, I have 3 candidates myself. I'm going to go with Jeff Lebby, Alex Golesh, and Kurt Cignetti. Who stands out to you?
Oh, okay. We are on. Jeff Lebby was on top of my list.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also going Kenny Dillingham.
Okay.
They're playing absolutely a fantastic football. Let's throw a boy out there, Lane Kiffin. He's navigated this quarterback change. They're undefeated. They're probably you could make the argument they're the best team in the SEC right now.
Really, you could say that they might be able to say they're the best team in the country, and you wouldn't necessarily be wrong about that.
So I'm going to give it to Lane Kiffin, but I've got to give a shout out for Brent Key.
Brent Key's doing a good job. Yeah, Brent Key earns honorable mention because that team has taken on the identity of their head coach. He's a hard-nosed, physical type of guy, former offensive lineman by trade, and that team plays like it. Again, they don't have the most talent on the field more often than not, but they go out there and they fight, scrap, and claw, and, Haynes King is a dog, right? And they definitely, compared to where they were under Jeff Collins, who is now an assistant here at Carolina, it's a night and day difference.
Well, and they love Georgia Tech.
Yeah,
Brent Key loves his school. He loves it, and I don't think he leaves, dude. I really don't. It would take not just an SEC job. Arkansas is going to be available, and it would take an elite job, I think, to get him to leave.
Florida should call him when their opening happens here, probably in a couple weeks.
Culture guy.
Yeah, that would be a hard job to turn down. But yes, it would take probably one of those high-profile elite level jobs to pry Brent Key away from Georgia Tech, more likely than not. I'm going to give mine to Jeff Lebby. What he took over last year was a mess. They had a terrible season, 2-10. Nobody's surprised by that. And, in terms of the rebuild, they seem to be ahead of schedule. And look, they darn well should have won that game on Saturday against Tennessee and moved to 5-0. Had a couple turnovers there, but the fact that you took them to overtime, a team that we think is really good in Tennessee, like shows that Mississippi State's not to be messed around with. And look, I don't know if they're going to be, a 9-10 win team, but like this team very realistically is probably going to win about 8 games this year, which is way more than anybody thought they were going to.
You talk about mirror images. They look a lot like the Georgia Tech team we were just talking about.
They do.
As far as the way they play, the way their coaches rallied them. We can't understand what they're dealing with at that program still. I mean, when your beloved coach, suddenly just dies.
Yeah.
And you're in chaos. And then, of course, I can't even remember the guy's name. The defensive coordinator was made the head coach, and we knew
Zach Arnett. And that was a bad choice.
It was a bad choice.
Yeah.
It was never going to work out. But they're having to he's basically going in and having to break it down and build it back up. Air raid? No. Something different. So that means rebuilding the roster. I'm really impressed. Let's give it to him.
We'll give it to him. Absolutely. Scott, appreciate you hanging out. I'm sure we'll be talking to you again soon.
You the man, Tyler. See you, brother.
All right, 1 hour in the books. Coming up next, hour number 2. It's the Garnet Trust Hour on your Thursday. Talking to Shelly Smith, head women's soccer coach here at South Carolina. Up next here on the game. All right, welcome back in. It is the Garnet Trust Hour presented by Krantz Cooling and Heating. Tyler Head and Wes Mitchell along with you here on your Thursday as we navigate you through your bye week for South Carolina football. But, man, the fall is a very, very busy time across all of South Carolina sports. So if you're not getting out and watching football this weekend, there are plenty of other sports that you can take in and check out, including Gamecock women's soccer. They've got a huge matchup coming up tonight. We'll talk about that and everything else going on with the women's soccer team with friend of the show, Coach Shelly Smith, who's joining us now on the AAA Heating and Air phone lines. Coach Smith, we appreciate your time as always. How are we doing today?
Of course. Good morning. Doing great. It's a beautiful day and excited for this evening. We have a big matchup, so couldn't ask for better weather for sure.
I was going to say, you guys are probably appreciative that it seems that the hot, humid, 90-plus degree days of summer are behind us and we're getting into actual cooler fall weather, right?
Exactly. No, it's wonderful. We're out in the field right now actually doing some activation and getting ready, and we were just commenting how perfect it is out there. So perfect for fans to come out too.
Absolutely. And again, we'll get into that matchup coming up tonight here in a minute. But it's been a few weeks since we've talked to you. I don't think we've talked to you since SEC play has started, but you guys are off to a really, really strong start. All wins with the exception of the tie against Florida a couple days back. And I'm sure you're very pleased with how your team has started out this conference slate.
Oh, for sure. I mean, it's hard, especially on the road in this conference, and we've been able to get some valuable points already. We'll finish October here with some more home games than we do away, which will be nice, a little different from what we've been facing, but we've done really well so far. Obviously, a tie. Being a tie was a little disappointing on the road because we had really outplayed and had good chances. But we kept ourselves in the losing column, and it's important. Every point matters as we get towards the end here and qualifying for the SEC tournament.
Hey, Coaches Wes, appreciate you hopping on as always. You said you were out there doing some activations right now. Kind of just sparked a question for me. What does a game day look like for you and your girls, just kind of from a routine standpoint? How in-depth is it? How structured is it in terms of what all you will do leading up to actually being on the field tonight?
Yeah, we're pretty, I guess, superstitious in a way. We always have our routines, and this team has always played some, I guess we call it like soccer tennis, so they get in teams and they have a little fun competition the day of the game, if it's an evening game, or the day before if it's an afternoon game. So they're out stretching, warmed up, and then they play a little competition. It's kind of a juggling competition, and that gets them kind of ready and focused and light. Really try to stay relaxed as well, game day. We also go over the opponent, reminders of the scout, what they're going to face, the keys to the game. And so just kind of getting focused this morning. Then they go off to class and get ready for this evening.
Gamecock women's soccer coach Shelly Smith joining us on the AAA Heating and Air phone lines. And this will be a top 10 matchup between y'all and Arkansas coming up tonight as you guys have moved into the top 10 in the top 25. And we talked about this a few weeks ago with football, where there's just, you always want to be ranked, obviously, but there's just kind of a different level of pride and accomplishment when you find yourself in that top 10. What does it mean for you? I know it's early on in the season still, but what does it mean for your program to be in the top 10 in all of women's soccer?
It's outstanding. I mean, you look at the list of teams that aren't in there, and you realize, okay, well, we're doing something pretty good here to be able to be in and among the ones that are ranked at this point, and to be this late in the season as well. To be in that good of a standing is an excellent situation for a team. We started out ranked, and we've managed to stay in the rankings, which is not always easy either, and to continue to rise in that is great. The fact that a lot of our SEC teams this year are ranked in the top 25, so it's been very competitive, a battle, and the fact that we're playing another top 10 team this evening is even more exciting. It's quite the matchup for us, so it's all it means a lot. At the end of the day, you just got to go out and play, and hopefully you continue to earn that ranking.
Coach, you mentioned you guys would go over the keys to victory. So, without giving away the game plan, what are some things that just stand out to you about this Arkansas team? What will be your keys tonight in terms of, getting a win?
Well, they're always difficult to play against. They're tough, a physical, direct team. They know how to score goals, very aggressive in and around their 18, and we have to do the same. We've been in good situations, good spots against opponents all fall, and we need that little extra sometimes to find the back of the net. And I thought last game we did that. We've got to continue to build on that and make sure we do that against them. And then we've got to defend our 18 as well as we have been. We've been very strong, hard to break down, and against this team especially, they know how to score. They're very good on set pieces, which is a difference between wins and losses. So that's going to be huge, a battle in both 18s. And then we have to make sure we keep the ball. I think we're a good possession team, and if we can settle the game down and keep the ball against them, we'll have a good shot.
Again, talking to head women's soccer coach Shelly Smith here on the AAA Heating and Air phone lines. You talk about Arkansas's ability to score, and we'll shine some light on one of your players, your goalkeeper. I don't want to mess up her last name. We'll just say Tina for short there, but she's having a phenomenal season, and she's going to be very vital in a game like tonight against a good offense like Arkansas.
Yeah, it's Tina Sayusis, and it is hard to pronounce.
I didn't want to mess it up.
I know, but no, she's had a great year. I think every game she's shown a little bit more confidence and composure in there, and that's been huge for us to have that. And that's what you want in your goalkeeper, and she's worked hard at it, and proud of her performances for sure.
Coach, let's show some love to a couple other players, too, and single them out. Obviously, Katie Shea is phenomenal, but what have you seen from her, just kind of making that jump from one year to the next in terms of her development?
She's made another jump because it's hard on your sophomore year. I mean, she can't go unnoticed. Freshman year, you kind of surprising some people, and this year she's got extra attention. With obviously Kat Berry graduating last year, who did draw a lot of attention. It's now on Katie Shea, and so she's had to handle that. They tried to mark her out of the game last game, but she still found a way to score and get behind, and so she has been phenomenal. She just has to get used to that extra attention. It makes it a little bit harder to find your chances, but she's been handling it well and getting better really throughout this season, even in the last few weeks.
And Katie Shea was somebody that came in a year ago with a lot of hype and has obviously lived up to that billing so far. Somebody that we talked about the last time we had you on the show was Mackenzie Johnson, your freshman forward, who had a really strong start of the season and continues to be kind of that second offensive piece behind Katie Shea. What have you seen out of her now that you guys have gotten into SEC play and the competition's gotten even stiffer so far?
Yeah, she's been great, and she's really a finisher, a goal scorer. She puts herself in great positions. You give her a chance and a look, and she will finish. So that's something very valuable. And as a freshman, she's done a tremendous job to finish in some really key moments for us. We've had a player as well in Kylie Sino who has grown a lot as a forward, and they're kind of sharing time up top as well now with Katie Shea up there. And she had come back from injury. So this matchup and last week's matchup was suited sometimes better for one person over another. And so Mackenzie is someone that we're going to rely on to come off the bench and give us great minutes just like she has most of the time. And so, sometimes you're changing based on what you know you're going to get and how you know you're going to play, what you're going to face in your opponent. And so what the good thing is that we got some – we have some depth up top to rely on, and even as a freshman, she's coming through, Mackenzie, for sure.
Coach, I was looking at the release for tonight's game. Spooky Night. What's that all about?
Well, I guess it's we play on the the fact that, we're at the graveyard. It's October, getting ready for Halloween. We've got some Halloween fans here, and we're going to be in all black. So it's just kind of a fun theme night for us.
If I'm listening to this interview right now and I don't have any plans tonight, why should I come out and be a big part of you guys winning this game tonight?
Well, the fans have been phenomenal all season. We've had great student body coming out here to cheer us on, and then the community has been tremendous as well. And we lead the nation in attendance. We want to continue to do that. It makes a difference. I mean, when I talk about on the road, it's difficult. We make it difficult for teams to come here to play. And this is a top 10 matchup. You're going to see some of the best that college women's soccer has to offer. It's a beautiful night, and it's a really fun atmosphere as well. So there's a lot of great things for anyone to kind of come out and enjoy Stone Stadium in October.
Of course, we know Stone Stadium is going to be packed out tonight for this top 10 matchup. The game's also going to be nationally televised on ESPNU. So when you couple a top 10 matchup, nationally televised, I know you kind of say you like to keep the routine same every single game. Is there extra juice when it comes to a game like this, just kind of given everything that goes into it and the eyes that will be upon you and your team?
Yeah, I think you kind of block that piece out, but you do thrive on the fact that we have these passionate fans and they come out and cheer us on. I mean, the players can't help but be more energized and excited. They go out there with a lot of pride to play. And being a team that, we know at the end of the day it's going to come down to these kind of points when we're talking about an SEC championship. So there's a lot riding on this game and the next several games here to finish out the season. So it's important. And to have the fan support, it's always meant a lot to us, and we've appreciated all that. We do hope to remain a top team in the country with our fan support.
Well, Coach, we appreciate you taking your time as always. Good luck to you and your team tonight, and we'll be checking in with you here in the next coming weeks as you guys get to the end of the regular season and start turning the attention to the postseason.
Sounds great. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Coach Shelly Smith there of Gamecock Women's Soccer joining us on the AAA Heating and Air phone lines. I guess if you already have your Halloween costume, you can pop it on and go watch the game tonight. Think that'd be in the spirit of spooky night.
Yeah, I mean, I think they would love that, man. And we already have the Thanksgiving turkey sub at at Firehouse,
which is
so
phenomenal.
Phenomenal. But I feel like everybody's just getting into the spirit for some of these just a little bit earlier than usual. So my wife already has all the Halloween stuff out at the house,
as does mine.
So yeah, if you got your costume, do you know what you're going to be yet? Do you dress up? Be honest. Do you dress up?
I did dress up last year. I don't typically. Bill and I were talking about dressing up for the Halloween show this year because it is on a Friday. So I gotta figure something out, but I don't know yet.
Our neighborhood, it actually they do Halloween pretty well.
Like a lot of kids in the neighborhood.
There's a lot of kids in the neighborhood, and everybody puts out tables instead of just you don't really go door to door, but you just put out a table and people kind of hang out. The adults walk around.
Nice.
Maybe have some of their own rewards for Halloween.
Sure.
But so pretty cool. Going out there though. I mean, it's gonna be a high level game tonight.
Yep, 7 p.m. tonight over at Stone Stadium. Again, if you can't make it out there, you can watch it on ESPNU as well as number 10 South Carolina takes on number 7 Arkansas. We'll get back into football coming up next as ESPN's put out its list of all the Power 4 quarterbacks through the first month of the season. Where did Lenore Sellers fall, and is it a fair ranking? We'll discuss that coming up next as the Garden Trust Tower, presented by Krantz Cooling and Heating, rolls along in your Thursday on the game. Welcome back in. Garnet Trust Hour presented by Krantz Cooling and Heating. Tyler Head and Wes Mitchell along with you here on your Thursday on the game. We'll be talking some advanced analytics with our guy Will Helms coming up at 10:30 as he takes a look at what the Gamecocks have done through the first 5 games. And that's what we've been doing a lot this week is reflecting back and looking at the sum of what's almost half the season for South Carolina as they enter their first bye week before taking on the tough slate that's going to be those final 7 games. But everybody seems to be kind of taking a look back at the first month of the season and kind of seeing where we are based on the expectations going into the year and what that kind of means going forward. And speaking of advanced analytics, by the way, Bill Connolly, who's in charge of the S&P Plus on ESPN, yesterday put out his list where he ranked every Power 4 quarterback 1 month into the season based a lot on the numbers and statistics and what they've done through the first, the first 5 or so games, depending on if you've taken your bye week or not. And for reference, there are 68 Power 4 teams, 4 power conferences, and Notre Dame mixed in there as well. And if you're wondering where Sellers is, not quite in the middle, a little bit above that. He actually has Lenore Sellers as number 27 overall. And some points that he makes is, obviously he has an offensive line that's allowed a lot of pressures. He's also taken on a lot of sacks, which he does put some of that on Lenore Sellers too, and doesn't have much of a run game to help him out. So he's taking into account the issues on offense, but Lenore Sellers 27 out of 68 quarterbacks, according to Bill Connolly, after 1 month of the season.
I think it's fair, Tyler. And a point that he also makes, in his lead here is like, hey, guys that we really were focused on in the preseason, Cade Klubnik at Clemson, Arch Manning, Nico, we all know. Yep. I mean, we got a good solid 2 days or more of conversation out of that whole saga. And it's just played out about as the worst it possibly could for him, I feel like, at UCLA. And then you have guys like someone who I've actually got on my screen right now for Ole Miss, watching this Ole Miss LSU game a little bit, getting ahead. Trinidad Chambliss, who was kind of a afterthought of a take for them, in terms of who the Ole Miss quarterback was going to be. And he's not only filled in, but basically has kind of taken over the position for them and has played very, very well. And, Connolly, for those wondering, has him number 3 on this whole thing. And I'm trying to find real quickly where Nussmeier is.
He is 37th.
37th?
Yes.
So now this is very much, correct me if I'm wrong, Tyler, this is very much a like, what have you truly done for me lately, like this season thing.
Yes.
We're not talking about draft status and the NFL and any of that stuff.
It's purely what have you done in your 4 or 5 games on however many you've played up to this point. And again, Connolly's an advanced analytics guy, so it's very heavily numbers based on what you've done on the field and also other things like pressure rates, those kind of things that go into your performance as a quarterback. So again, Sellers is doing a lot better than some of these other guys that were hyped up well going into the year, Nussmeier, Klubnik, Arch Manning. So he's above those guys, but still kind of finds himself just slightly above the middle part.
Yeah, and I'm sure we will talk to Will about this when he comes on, but I was looking at the PFF stuff through 5 games, and Sellers is actually graded higher by a fairly substantial amount than he was last year, believe it or not. And a big reason for that is he has cut down on what PFF calls turnover-worthy plays. And that's where, hey, we're not necessarily even measuring was it an interception, but did you throw it to where a defender could have intercepted it, basically. His grade in terms of protecting the football as a runner is much improved. His grade as a passer overall has improved. You just have not seen the jaw-dropping numbers from him. Some of that has just been the play around him. Some of that has been what everybody's talked about ad nauseum, just kind of everybody trying to get settled in, I think, with a new offensive coordinator, not having big games against teams maybe where you feel like you could have had a chance to put up big offensive numbers. And, I do think one of the things the analytics tend to show on Sellers is that, yes, he's going to make some big plays for you in the run game, but so far he's going to get himself out of some sacks. He's going to get himself into some sacks as well. So I think that's something that he will look to clean up coming out of the bye week moving forward. But I do think this is a fairly fair assessment of just his play so far. Can it be like that? There's a ton of upside here. Can it? He's also a guy, Tyler. I feel like he raises his game. We saw last year. Some of it was comfort, like he just got more comfortable. I think he's one of those guys that has a little extra when the game is on the line or when the level of competition raises. So I remember looking at Lenoris's stats at the halfway point last year, and it was kind of just vanilla. And then you look at his stats overall by the end of the year, and you're going, this guy, if he could do this for an entire year, would be the Heisman winner. So I don't know. You think it's fair?
Yeah, I think it's fair, and I'm glad you brought that up because, funny enough, Sellers has played 4.5 games this year because he missed the last half of the Vanderbilt game, and through 5 games last year, he had 4.5 games because he missed the half against LSU, and his numbers are almost exactly the same. So last year, through 4.5 games, had 793 yards through the air, 4 touchdowns, 4 picks, was completing 62% of his passes, had 219 rush yards, and this does account for sack yardage as well, ran for 3 touchdowns and was sacked 20 times at that point. Through 4.5 games this year, 886 yards through the air, 4 touchdowns, only 1 pick, better completion percentage of 66, has only run for 98 yards, and 1 touchdown, has been sacked 14 times. So some of the numbers better, some of the numbers worse, but still overall kind of within that same realm of exactly where he was a year ago at this point.
Yeah. The thing that stands out to me, though, just a little bit better in the turnover department.
Yes, which that was a huge focal point for him in the offseason.
Yes, and I think he quietly, Tyler, has done some things in the passing game that if you're just watching the game live, maybe you don't even catch it. But if you go back and you kind of rewatch the game, kind of getting to that second or third read and resetting his feet, maneuvering in the pocket at times when he does stand in there, like there has been quietly a lot of development within his game, and it does go to show you though. There's several tweets from a couple of like national guys from this past week basically saying to the effect, man, Sellers is quietly playing really well right now.
Yeah.
And, all the conversation after like 2 or 3 weeks was, man, Sellers isn't off to the start we expected. So it can turn, he could fall back on this list once they're playing these great defenses or great teams, I should say, for the next 5 or so weeks, or he could be top 10 by the time they kind of reassess what this list looks like. But just, it's amazing how many of the preseason names like aren't even like you just have to scroll forever to get to. And it's amazing. So the kid at Utah, Dampier, I feel like there was a little bit of buzz about him after the first couple weeks of like, hey, this guy could be a superstar. He's 34th now. But, dude, there are some talented players that are, Bryce Underwood is 38th. Nussmeier, 37. Kevin Jennings for SMU, who's, I think, a really solid college quarterback, 35th. Sam Levitt is 31st. There's some talented guys that are like at the 30s and 40s on this thing.
Yep. So, again, Lenoir Sellers 27th on Bill Connolly's quarterback rankings after 1 month of the season. We'll dive into more specific South Carolina analytics coming up next with our guy Will Helms of the Garnet Trust Hour, presented by Krantz Cooling Heating. Rolls on your Thursday here on The Game. Welcome back in. It is the Garnet Trust Hour presented by Krantz Cooling and Heating. It's Ed and Wes Mitchell along with you here on your Wednesday. Always excited to talk some advanced analytics with our guy Will Helms, who does just that for Gamecock Central, who is joining us now on the AAA Heating and Air phone lines. Will, appreciate your time as always. How are we doing today, man?
Doing great. How are y'all?
Doing good. We obviously have a bye week to kind of sit back and assess a 5-game sample size for South Carolina. And before we get into the just numbers overall, when you look at what you've seen through the first 5 games from just a observer standpoint, what do you think about this team? What stands out to you?
Well, I think, we always want to, compare that to preseason expectations. And I think an oversimplification is the special teams unit looks a little bit better than we expected with all those newcomers coming in. The defense looks a lot better than we expected, and the offense is still kind of ramping it up and not quite where people expected them to be.
Yeah, let's start with number 16, man. I think it's been kind of fascinating to hear the conversation around LaNorris Sellers and just kind of what it was preseason, then what it was the first couple of games, and now what it is now that you have a full kind of 5-game sample. The dramatic numbers that we saw from him the kind of latter part of last year have not been there. But I think if you dive a little bit deeper, Will, there's been some actually really strong quarterback play from LaNorris Sellers, particularly in just not putting the ball in danger. I know PFF is a pretty good bit higher on his season so far, and compared to his grades last year. But what do the numbers tell you in terms of how to kind of frame up 16's season here through 5 games?
Yeah, I think you can look at it. He got off to a slow start, and I think when you look at the numbers now that he's kind of picked it up, you can kind of see why. And he's never been a strong short passer. It's one of the weirder parts of his game, whether it's he puts too much zip on the ball or what. He's never thrown a touchdown pass of less than 10 yards in the air on a non-screen. I think he scored once or twice on a screen last year. But he's never thrown short of the sticks for a touchdown. It's always a deep ball. It's always beyond the sticks. And the first couple of games, he was doing those things well. He just wasn't actually being asked to throw the ball deep at all. He had, I think, through 2 games, 4 passes that went over 15 yards in the air. And you just can't have that if you're talking about a guy like LaNorris Sellers. And so the biggest thing that's changed in the last couple of games is he's actually putting the ball in the air down the field. And you're seeing South Carolina move the ball much better when he does those things.
And talking to Will Helms, who does advanced analytics for Gamecock Central. And since we're on the topic of LaNorris Sellers, obviously a lot of frustrations come from people watching this year and seeing him not breaking out of the pocket, at least in the first 4 games. He did better this past game against Kentucky, but, kind of being stuck in the pocket and taking some pretty ugly sacks, not getting the ball away as well. And the numbers seem to kind of back that up in terms of Sellers camping out in the pocket maybe more often than people were expecting him to this year.
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of a balance in the sense that, you want to push the ball down the field, which means you've got to let those routes develop. And I think he's one of those quarterbacks who's very willing to throw under pressure. He's not very affected by pressure to the extent that other people are. And yes, he's a running quarterback, but he's a guy that's going to stand in the pocket. He'll take a shot and deliver downfield. Whereas you'll see some of these other guys kind of break contain early and, maybe give up on a play a little bit early. And so I think you do have to live with that a little bit when you're talking about a guy like LaNorris Sellers. You're going to deal with some pressures. You're going to deal with some sacks. But part of that is he would rather, if you're talking about 3 pressures in a row, he would rather, take a sack on one of those to deliver down the field on 2 of them, then kind of break out and, deliver for 2 yards, 3 yards on three straight plays. I think overall you take the positive from that over the negative. But it is something that you just kind of have to live with Sellers. You kind of have to live with, we're talking about the pass blocking a little bit. You kind of have to live with some pressures if you're South Carolina's offense, just because South Carolina wants to let some of these deep over routes develop. They want to let some of these double moves develop. And, when you see that happen, you see a lot of really nice deep passes, but you do see the occasional bad sack in the pocket or somewhere where it's like, he maybe could have taken off and run for 3 yards. But overall, I think you want to live with that because of the positive it brings.
Talking to Will Helms here, does analytics, does a great job for us over at Gamecock Central. Will, let's zoom back out again, man. What do some of the kind of team-based metrics that you follow and kind of believe in tell you about South Carolina particularly? I know you wrote about it in your piece this week in terms of the changes from week to week after the win over Kentucky. And what was this just South Carolina beating a team they are supposed to beat and kind of doing what they were supposed to do, or do you think this was a decent win for Carolina?
I think it's a combination of a lot of things. When we're looking at some of these metrics like SP Plus or Kelly Ford that I like to use, they're supposed to be forward-facing. And so any forward-facing metric has to use past data to get there. And so South Carolina moved up more than any other team in the country in both of those metrics this week. And it wasn't just a good win over Kentucky. It was the fact that Missouri and Vanderbilt continue to look better. It was the fact that Virginia Tech picked up a big win over NC State. And so I think we might look back at this season. If you're an optimistic South Carolina fan, you might look back in 2 months and say, Missouri is a really good football team that moves the ball consistently down the field, which does not work well for South Carolina's, kind of boom or bust offense and a defense that likes to create big plays as well. Both of those teams avoided negative plays on offense and controlled the time of possession and played a game that South Carolina really did not want to get into. And then you see when South Carolina's playing a team like Kentucky that doesn't do that, you see how much more success South Carolina had. And so if you're an optimistic fan, you're looking forward and you're saying, well, LSU can't run the ball. Clemson can't run the ball. Really the only team left on the schedule that can actually move the ball with some consistency without hitting chunk plays is Ole Miss. Everyone else on the schedule is going to rely on those chunk plays just like South Carolina does, meaning you might get into a slightly better game flow against some of these other teams that at the beginning of the year may have looked a little bit more difficult, but when you compare them to the type of team that South Carolina does excel against or does not excel against, you might see that some of these matchups are a little bit more favorable than they looked 3 or 4 weeks ago.
And talking to Will Holmes, who does advanced analytics for Gamecock Central, you mentioned the S&P Plus, which is by Bill Connolly of ESPN. And earlier on in the hour, Wes and I were talking about his list of ranking the 68 Power 4 quarterbacks through 1 month of the season. And Sellers came in a little above halfway through at number 27. And you have your own numbers, obviously, on Sellers we just discussed. Do you think that's kind of fair, too high, too low, maybe about right, being 27 out of 68?
I think if we're looking at just this season, including the first couple of games where he's fine, he didn't do too much, didn't have really bad games. But at the same time, you're really looking at he's had 2 very good games this season. They happen to be the past 2 weeks, but he's had 2 very good games and then 2 1/4 kind of decent fine games. And so if you're looking at based on what everybody else is on, I think that's fair. And Bill says even in that piece, he doesn't say that he's saying these are the best quarterbacks in the country. He's saying, okay, here's who's played the best through 5 games. And so I think it's fair to say that when Sellers has been a solid, above-average quarterback this season, South Carolina needs him to be a little bit more than that, and he has been the past couple of games.
We'll get some more insight from Will as we wrap up the Garnet Trust Hour coming up next as your Thursday rolls along here on The Game. Welcome back in. It is the Garnet Trust Hour presented by Krantz Cooling and Heating. Tyler Head and Wes Mitchell wrapping up the hour talking advanced analytics with our guy Will Helms of Gamecock Central on the AAA Heating and Air phone lines. Will, as we wrap up the hour here, a couple other things you pointed out in your latest article on Gamecock Central. Obviously, we've been talking a lot about the issues on offense, the defense kind of coming along. Special teams outside of Ricari Swain and his punt returns have not been talked about a lot, but one underrated aspect of this team that I wish people paid more attention to was what Mason Love's been doing as a punter. And you look at some of his numbers that you pointed out there, and he's been average, but we've seen him down several punts inside the 20, including several inside the 10 and 5 yard lines as well, one of those being this past weekend against Kentucky. And when you're replacing a guy like Kai Kroger, that is a tall task to kind of replace that kind of efficiency, and Mason Love's done a pretty solid job through the first 5 games in that punting role.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's there was always going to be a drop-off, no matter how highly recruited he was, no matter how talented he was. You don't go from Kai Kroger to your next punter and just say, oh, yeah, this guy's just as good. Mason Love's got, correct me if I'm wrong, a redshirt freshman. And so he's got time in the program. He's going to be, going to continue to improve. But I think what you're getting out of that position is more than what you could have hoped for. And I think you could say the same thing for both the kicker position and the kickoff position.
Well, let's dive into what is next for South Carolina. You can take this whatever way you want. Is there an area or two that you're focused on with South Carolina that you just say, man, there's actually maybe room for improvement here? And then if that improvement did happen, it would mean like the difference maybe in a couple of wins potentially during this just – tough stretch they have coming up.
Yeah, I think one of the things, and everybody talks about it, the running game. This running game does not have to put up 250 yards a game for South Carolina to win. But if you can take some of those negative runs, and they only had 1 negative run against Kentucky, they only had 2 sacks against Kentucky, and so you're talking about 3 negative plays in the entire offense. If they can turn some of these negative 1 yard runs into 3 yard runs, and some of these 2 yard runs into 4 or 5 yard runs, this offense can be really, really good. We've seen what happens when North Sellers can push the ball down the field. How much better could it be if he's pushing the ball down the field on 2nd and 6 versus 2nd and 11 or 2nd and 10? And so that's something I'm looking at, especially as we're coming up. I mentioned this a little bit in my article, but it's not like South Carolina is going to be outclassed in the running game in a lot of these remaining games. Clemson can't run the ball. Oklahoma certainly cannot run the ball. LSU cannot run the ball. It's kind of across college football this year that there's a lot of teams that just really, really struggle to run the ball. And so South Carolina's not going to get into one of these games like they had against Missouri where they just can't stay off the field. They just can't get there. The defense has been solid against the run. So if South Carolina can turn some of these really bad runs into okay runs and some of these okay runs into decent runs, the offense is going to keep clicking. The offense is going to keep getting better.
Well, speaking of the run game, of course, between the Vanderbilt and Missouri game, South Carolina missed a lot of tackles, and a lot of that was due to guys like Ahmad Hardy and their ability to break tackles, really torturing South Carolina's defense. But you also point out, when you kind of look at this stretch run of games to close out the year, with the exception of Kawan Lacey at Ole Miss, there's really not any running backs that are standing out as huge tackle breakers that this defense is going to have to deal with going forward.
Yeah, and I think you also have to look at how did those tackles happen. I mean, South Carolina played really, really well in the running game. Missouri's success rate was by far the lowest in the running game. It was all season against South Carolina. I think you kind of have to say the defense got worn down a little bit. If you're looking at PFF stop rate, which is basically just the percentage of plays, running plays, of defenders on the field in which they make a tackle that constitutes an unsuccessful run for the offense. That can be a tackle for loss. It could be a 2 yard run on 1st and 10. South Carolina has 9 of the top 20 players in the SEC in that. They're stopping the run extraordinarily well. It's happening at all 3 levels of the defense. Brandon Cisse is the #1 player in the country in that stat. As far as secondary players, you've got defensive linemen that are up there. You've got linebackers that are up there. I thought, and I tweeted this, I think, during the Missouri game, that the scheme difference, I think it was the first time since Clayton White has been here that he actually out-schemed the Missouri offense. You get to the 3rd quarter, the 4th quarter, South Carolina's either scoring on 2 plays or going 3 and out. I think that time of possession really got to South Carolina, and that's when you started to see Ahmad Hardy start to break tackles. You see them, kind of not quite get to their gap. They're a half step behind, and now they're hitting with an arm tackle instead of being able to wrap up. So I really don't think tackling has been that big of an issue. I think that they've gotten into a couple of game situations where they don't want to be. They're a little bit tired. They can't rotate too much because the defense is not extraordinarily deep, and I don't see that happening going forward. And I think that's the main thing. Of you may have issues in the past, but will you have those same issues going forward? And I just don't think that that's going to be something that we're going to be talking about a month or two from now about how South Carolina's defense can't stop the run and can't tackle.
Will, a couple minutes left here. What thoughts do you have on any of the games from this weekend? Anything you want to share on Florida State, Miami, or Alabama, Vanderbilt? Anything that kind of stands out to you, big picture, as we'll all be watching some other games this weekend?
I think this weekend is going to be very interesting to see if Vanderbilt can play with a team like Alabama. They won last year. We all know Diego Pavia has been extraordinary this season. Bill Connolly talks about it in his piece that he's running less, but he's running more efficiently. He's the most efficient quarterback as a passer and a runner in the country. And so I'm interested to see that line started at like 14, and I think dropped down to almost 8 or 9. Is that at Vanderbilt or is that at Alabama?
It's at Alabama.
Okay. So you got to take Bama because Kalen DeBoer is my favorite coaching staff. Has never lost at home in front of fans as a coach. And so I think you have to take Alabama in that one. But I am going to be very interested to see if Vanderbilt can hang with them. And if so, how do they hang with the Crimson Tide? Is it a bunch of misdirection and they, kind of get to the edge and kind of, grind out a nice little drive here and there? Or is it like, they're going blow to blow with Alabama, who we've seen is a very good team after that first loss? So I think that's one that I'm very interested in. And then the other one you mentioned, I think Miami might be the best team in the country. And I'm interested to see if they play like that.
Should be a fun weekend ahead, stress-free from a Carolina standpoint, and then we'll get back into worrying about what this team does next weekend against LSU. Appreciate it as always, Will, and I'm sure we'll be talking to you here in the next couple weeks.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Will. Have a good one, man.
And Will Helms there of Gamecock Central doing some advanced analytics. We'll talk a little bit about what he had to say there as well as continue to reflect on what we've seen from South Carolina through the first 5 weeks of the season as we get into the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs coming up next as your Thursday rolls along here on the game. 11 o'clock on your Thursday morning. Welcome in. Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler Head, Wes Mitchell, Chris Clark along with you here. And yes, I do say Wes's name first. I think we can confirm that. So sorry, Chris, if you feel like you're the third man on the list here. I can mix it up if you want me to from time to time. I just have to get, I might mess it up because I'm not used to saying it.
As long as you don't call me Wes, which you every now and then do, but like it's just you have like 8 different show names. You have all these different people coming in and out. It's fine.
It's within the context of going back and forth between 3 people. It happens. I don't look at you and say, "Yep, that's definitely Wes." Like, no, it's like like my mom calls me my sister's name occasionally.
Oh, that's a parent thing.
That's a parent thing, right? Like it's that same kind of deal. Or actually, she'll call me my sister's name and then like 5 other family members' names before she gets to mine.
That's called calling the roll.
Exactly. Got to make sure you name off everybody before you get to the right one.
Yeah, it gets worse and worse as you get older and have more people in the family and all that.
Do y'all ever just forget a name of somebody you like know?
Oh, yes.
Ooh.
Like my brain will just go blank, and I'll be like, "Oh God, like what? What do I do?"
Well, but how about like, hey, Wes, what's your dad's name? You're not like,
No, I've like looked at people before and be like, I've known you for a decade, and like I know their name, but in that moment, my filing cabinet is just like not there.
My bad thing, and doing the jobs that we do in sports media, we meet a lot of people, and also other sports media people, and just being around sponsors and stuff like that, where you'll meet somebody once and then see them again 3-4 months later, and you're like, oh man, what's that person's name? And you don't want to be rude and be like, oh, I forgot your name. So you have to kind of like work your way around it, or have somebody else bring it up, or you're like, hey, what's that person's name over there? I don't remember. So you're trying to remain professional. That's my thing, is like, I'm usually good with remembering names, but every now and then, if it's just somebody I meet in passing and they remember me and I don't remember them, I'm like, oh, this is awkward.
You got to move? Like, do you have a strategy?
I do. It's very much like, if it's somebody I feel like I need to communicate with a lot or something like that, I'm like, hey, don't have your number, put it in my phone. Or I'm like, I'm going to text you from my phone, or you text my phone with your name and I'll save it as a contact.
Oh,
that's a good one too.
Move. Pretty good move.
That is good.
Be like, hey, hadn't seen you in a while. We need to catch up or talk about this thing. Let's get your number. That type of thing.
You could do, how do you, let me make sure I'm spelling it right, but then if they're like, oh, it's with a C, then you're like, you just put in a C.
Well, and
I'm just going to shorten it for now. I'll put in the rest later.
I was going to say, you have to be careful, because some names, like Josh, right? Like, we all know how to spell Josh. You can't get away with, like, is that with a P or something? Like, no, that wouldn't work. But
you can walk yourself into a situation there.
Well, like your thing with Devontae yesterday. Like, there's a lot of ways to spell Devontae. So you could ask that, and it's reasonable to be like, oh, he may not know how to spell my version of it.
My favorite is, now you need a partner. So if you're somewhere and you got the wifey, for instance, which we all here do.
This is my move.
Yeah, we talked about this one before, but hey, this is my wife, so-and-so, and then that person will introduce themselves to your wife, and then you have the name.
You hope.
That's a good one.
You hope.
Yeah. If not, you're like, dang it, that didn't work.
Didn't work at all.
It normally works.
My favorite thing, Tyler does not get our names wrong. My favorite thing that Tyler does, because he does have 10 different shows, so like, welcome into the Gamecock Central Takeover. There's like that slight pause where he's like, on Thursday.
It depends on how much sleep I got the night before. Most days I'm pretty sharp, but I think today I've had to sit and think like, no, it's Thursday. This is now the Garnet Trust Hour, or now the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour, so it happens.
It does. But it's Thursday of the bye week.
I'm the only person that hosts multiple shows, so I think I can be forgiven for that one. It is the bye week, as you mentioned. We just talked some advanced analytics with a guy, Will Helms, there at the end of the Garnet Trust Hour, presented by Krantz Cooling and Heating. And as we get set for, again, this tough slate of games coming up, starting with LSU next week, some of the numbers that he was talking about there and some of the things that we've seen in the last 2 games give you reason for optimism, right? Now, we're not saying they're going to go out there and win all 7 of these games and end the year, at 10-2. That'd be great. And obviously, you'd probably be in the playoff at that point. No, you would be in the playoff at that point in time. But we know these teams get better as the season goes along, and you're seeing some things, particularly with Sellers throwing the ball well against Missouri, finally running the ball well against Kentucky, that say, okay, maybe you're finally hitting your stride a little bit Defense looking good in this past game against Kentucky. Cleaned up the missed tackles. Maybe they're kind of finally getting into a groove a little bit with some of these things that they didn't start off the season well with.
Well, I think one of his other points, too, was how good is Missouri? How good is Vanderbilt? Are those, and I think those teams are certainly better than maybe we gave them credit for coming into the season, but just how good are they compared to this stretch of teams that you have coming up? And then how do you have to factor in road games versus home games? You almost like a couple of these, like, would you rather, like, Alabama all of a sudden is going to be tough, man. Would you almost rather just that be the away game? If you think Alabama is going to beat South Carolina anyway, would you rather just that game be away and you get another shot at LSU at home? Like, I think, Chris, you ranked it. What's the easiest game among these five?
Among the five,
next five.
Power Four.
Next five.
Oh, the next five. Who did I have?
LSU?
I think I had LSU. Let me double check myself because I don't have it in my head.
So yeah,
might have changed it since I wrote it. Honestly, yeah, I had next I had Oklahoma.
I was gonna say if you're excluding the last two against Coastal and Clemson,
yes,
you'd have Oklahoma as the fifth toughest game out of the next five.
Good luck, top
because it's home.
Because it's home.
Well, and we still don't know the status of Mateer either.
I'm kind of counting in my head that Mateer plays
because, of course,
and you're like, what? That's out of those five, that's the easiest game. It's like, yeah.
Well, none of them are easy.
None of them are easy. So that's the thing. It's like, which one's the least?
I tend to think on a neutral site, it would be LSU.
Yeah.
Like, how much do you factor in Death Valley?
Yeah. The road and home aspect of this definitely counts for a lot. And again, last year Carolina went and wreaked havoc on Oklahoma, a team that was trending towards dead in the water at that point in time, and we certainly know what that season ended up being. But if you're playing in Norman instead of Columbia, I imagine that game probably bumps up a few notches on this list, in terms of what you have left if everything else stayed the same.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, what is that? I saw, these graphics people do now that's just designed to, like, get engagement.
Sure.
What I was like, is this the toughest 5-game stretch in college football history?
Whoa.
And I'm like, okay, dramatic. But
isn't that what Florida had at the end of last year?
Yes, that probably similar graphics floating around on the gram. But the point being, this is a insane stretch. The fact that Mateer is a Heisman favorite right now, and we're saying that's the easiest game of the five. Like that tells you how strong these 5 games are in terms of opponents and what you're going to have to do. I feel like we haven't talked about A&M at all this year. And, you got to go there, man. Mm-hmm. Marcel Reed is a handful. That was a game where, you ended up kind of pulling away at the end, but you were in an absolute battle at home at night last year against those guys. So, I don't know. I tend to think I think LSU is actually very winnable game. There's a lot of chatter this week about what is the health status of Nussmeier. How bad has that non-core injury, but is an ab injury?
Right.
I thought those are the same things.
Similar.
So
certainly.
And it's interesting. I'm glad you brought that up because Brian Kelly yesterday was even asked about this by like, hey, kind of what's going on with that, and he kind of had a bit of an angry response.
Yeah, that's misinformation. Those are not based on any facts. They're quite silly, actually, Shay. And I know you have to ask the question, so I'm certainly not throwing you under the bus for asking it because people want to know. But this is misinformation. Early on, he had an ab strain, not a core injury in terms of what a core injury that we deal with. And it's been slow to heal, but as I had mentioned, he's on the backside of that, and he's getting rest this week, and he'll be the Garrett Nussmeier that he needs to be as we get into the very difficult part of our schedule.
And going back in time a little bit here, there was a legitimate situation in camp where Garrett Nussmeier basically sat out the rest of practice one day because he tweaked something. I don't think he got hit. Quarterbacks aren't getting hit in camp or anything like that. But something happened where they said, hey, you're good, sit out the rest of practice for precautionary reasons. And we didn't really hear much from it since then. But when you watch the first 5 games he's played, there's definitely an issue, particularly when it comes to him throwing the ball down the field that wasn't there a year ago. And again, Brian Kelly's keeping things as close to the vest as possible, but there is something going on with Nussmeier that the bye week comes at a really good time for him as he's trying to get that healed up so he can play his best football for their stretch to close out the season as well. So
what part is misinformation? He just said that
I don't know.
The injury has been slow to heal. Like what? Like that to me felt very contradictory in terms of what he said and what he said at the beginning, then what he said in the middle. There's our guy Shay, by the way, from the LSU On3 site. Great dude, very tied in at LSU, but he's clearly dealing with something, right? And so I don't know what part he's saying is wrong, but and I guess a core injury is considered to be more serious than just this ab issue. But you're talking about a guy who I think had some of the better mechanics in the SEC in terms of quarterback play last year. And the way he could just kind of, like we see from a lot of guys, he can kind of just flick the football down the field with accuracy. I watched almost all that Ole Miss game. It just felt different. And maybe 2 weeks, maybe being on the shelf for the bye week, maybe it cleans it up. Maybe it does. And we're not even having this conversation. But I think if you're looking for a reason for optimism, not that you would ever wish injury on a guy, but he is already injured. So if you're looking for like a reason why you're saying, hey, South Carolina could have some things go their way in this game, LSU does not run the football well at all. And now your guy who came back to lead you to a national title is just, regardless of what the injury status is just not quite playing up to that standard, which I think is noteworthy. Also noteworthy that Brian Kelly did not have a Southern accent in that quote.
It's like he forgets to bring it with him some days.
Left it at home?
Yeah, left it at home. Dang it, I left my accent at home.
Dang it. Yeah,
habit.
Something is off. Defensively, we were talking about this yesterday. They're much improved. And actually, a lot of the things that they can do defensively are things that South Carolina has struggled with. So I think that's something to consider. LSU's probably not looking at this thing going, okay, we got to rush for 200 yards and we got to put up a bunch of points offensively. They might be looking at it going, we just need to play pretty well on defense, not screw it up, be pretty good on offense. Obviously South Carolina, you're going to be concerned in all facets of that game. And Garrett Nussmeier, we saw what he did last year in this game. There are a lot of Shane Beamer's talked about this. There were calls in that game that could have, should have gone the other way. Lots of them. But there were also some things that South Carolina could control in that game that they did not handle very well. And Garrett Nussmeier, when given opportunities, he's a dude. He can make a lot of plays. And so something's been a little off offensively through the first few games of the season, but they're very talented. They're very good. They've got a bunch of guys who have done it before, like Nussmeier, like Caden Durham at running back. They've got Harlan Berry, who's a former, I think, number 1 back in the country on their roster. They've got guys. And so, in any time they could turn it around. If you're South Carolina, you just want to try to prevent it from being next week.
We'll continue to look at what South Carolina has left on their schedule after the bye week as the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs rolls along on your Thursday here on The Game. Welcome back in. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler West and Chris along with you on your Thursday here on the game. Tonight, Carolina Call is coming up at 7:30. I believe that's going to be with Coach Paris, previewing a little bit of basketball, which is a little over a month away.
You don't have to believe it is.
It is. Confirm. Okay, you can confirm it is with Coach Paris. So, yes, tonight, 7:30, get a preview of men's basketball, which is just over a month away from starting, coming up in, I believe, North Carolina A&T's first game for them over at Colonial Life Arena. And then following that, Thursday Night Football with the 49ers and the Rams. Coverage for that starts at 8 o'clock, all right here on the game. As we are assessing things of the bye week, we're diving into what Chris wrote the other day for Gamecock Central in terms of ranking the opponents from easiest to toughest that Carolina has in their final 7 games. And we go to the top of the board now with Alabama. And there's perhaps no team on this list or on South Carolina's schedule that I think we've flip-flopped more our feelings about going into the season, after week 1, after a couple weeks after that, and now after they played Georgia this past weekend, where, again, Carolina went on the road and very nearly won that game against Alabama last year. We say, okay, well, they're losing some talent. We don't know what Ty Simpson is. They're coming into Carolina. Man, that seems like a game you might have a really good shot at getting. Then they go out there and lay an egg against Florida State and look terrible doing it. Oh, wow. Feel a whole lot better about that game. Look better in the weeks after that, beating ULM and Wisconsin. Okay, they're handling their business against teams that aren't really very good. But then this past weekend, they go out there and beat Georgia on the road, 24-21. Ty Simpson looks like he could be a Heisman favorite this year with the way that he's playing as of right now. And then it becomes okay, that game looks maybe about as tough as it's ever been since the schedule came out.
Well, and how much would it shift again if Vandy goes in there and wins or even keeps it very close and has a shot to win? It could shift again, man. It is very, very hard to play elite football consistently. And I think one thing that gets lost, too, is do you catch that team on one of their upswings, or do you catch that team on just that off day where and we talk about this, too, the difference in good ball and bad ball could just be, hey, you had everything set up on a play that could have completely changed the game, and, one guy just gets a little ahead of himself and blows an assignment or turns his head upfield when he's about to catch a ball, anything. And I'll say this, man, Ty Simpson, he looked very comfortable against your Bulldogs. He runs the ball just enough, too, that you have to kind of account for it. And, Ryan Grubb, the job he did as the Alabama offense coordinator, the job he did coming up with a game plan to attack Georgia, give Alabama a chance, even though they don't run the football incredibly well either, I think was just very, very impressive. Now can Alabama, it's still a different vibe than it was with Nick Saban, where it was just this kind of military general, we're going to, very structured, everything is going to be a certain way. How do they respond to now being told how great they are? Mm-hmm. Much like, I'm very curious that Miami-Florida State game this week. A lot of people are going to bury Florida State because they lost to Virginia, at Virginia. Miami has to come to their place now. How does that affect things? It's not easy to go out there and play well every single week. So we'll see what Bama is by the time that game gets here. As soon as you think you have things figured out, you realize you just don't.
Who are y'all? I don't know if we'll do this tomorrow if we're doing some picks, but let's go ahead and spoil one. Are y'all taking Bama or Vandy?
I picked Alabama in staff picks.
Yeah. Nobody took Vandy.
Yeah. I guess the better question, do you want to see Vandy win? If Vandy won that game, would you be cheering for, tight game, one score, they're driving to win? Are you cheering for Vanderbilt to win that game, or do you want to see Alabama win it? Because I think we all got behind Vanderbilt last year because, oh my God, it's Vanderbilt. Look, they're doing something they've never done before. They didn't seem like a threat. They didn't seem like a threat to anyone, right?
It was cute. It was cute.
Yeah. Good for them, man. They've been the doormat of the conference forever. Good for them for beating the number 1 Alabama team. And this year, and Diego Pavia has a lot to do with that, with his brashness. People are like, oh, I don't know if I like this team anymore. I'm finding myself rooting against them more, is how I think a lot of people feel.
I mean, I think I would. If it's the fourth quarter and Vandy's got a chance to win, yeah, why not? It's fun.
Makes your loss look better.
Let's get crazy.
Yeah,
it does, because one way or another, win or loss, you got to go play Bama.
You do.
If they lose against Vandy, if they beat, it doesn't matter. You got to go beat all these teams. So yeah, I'm generally for chaos.
I think that would just further confirm that the entire SEC right now is just a blender. Like,
yeah,
just everybody. I mean, I don't know. I think that would actually maybe be a good sign for South Carolina in two ways. Like, one, hey, Vandy beat you, but you didn't have Sellers. The game just got away from you. Mm-hmm. That game was closer than the score would indicate. And then you're going, well, hey, they just went to Bama and won. And it makes Alabama seem a little bit more beatable. It makes your loss to Vandy seem a little bit not as harsh.
Yeah.
Would further kind of double down on the idea that all these SEC teams can kind of beat each other on a week-to-week basis. I tend to think the separation, among all the teams in the league is smaller than it's ever been. And, I don't think that would be a bad thing. And I mean, is it easy to hate Diego Pavia, especially when he's playing your team? Yes, it is. But I was talking about this with a couple of buddies of mine. He has backed up his talk. Like, he absolutely has.
Yeah.
Is there – I mean, I think there is a world where Vandy is a college football playoff team this year. Like, I don't really think that's far-fetched anymore. And they're going to go in there. They're going to play their game. They're going to shorten the game. They're going to make first downs. They're going to stay on the field. They just have a knack for keeping games close. And I'll tell you one thing. I would not touch this game with a 10-foot pole in terms of betting it with that line.
Yep.
I don't think anybody's ready to pick Vandy to win the game, but they can definitely keep this thing close.
Vandy has, obviously, at Bama. Then they have a bye. They play LSU and Missouri at home. They go at Texas. They play Auburn and Kentucky at home, and then at Tennessee. So, like South Carolina and a bunch of others in this SEC blender, like you said, Wes, they're playing a bunch of really good teams, top 15, top 10. But if you look at it through the lens of, okay, you need to you can have 2 losses. You can probably have 3.
Sure.
If they can go, let's say they lose to Tennessee and Texas and beat everybody else, they're in, right? I mean, that is crazy.
Yeah.
That would mean beating Alabama this week, though.
That would mean beating out. Well, that's what I said,
Well, you'd have...
Or I mean, take your pick. Lose to Bama and lose on the road at Texas and then beat everybody else. Like, that's a tall order, but is it impossible? I mean, not from what we've seen so far.
Well, that's the thing, is you have such a balance of... You have so many good teams there that you can almost interchange those 2 losses and be like, well, you'd have enough quality wins to balance it out. Outside of, as long as they didn't lose like Utah State the other weekend or something like that, that's a bad loss. Like, you're losing SEC games to ranked teams.
You got to beat Kentucky.
Yeah, beat Kentucky. Yeah,
the ones that were just listed.
Don't lose that game. Like, everything else would qualify as a quality loss. I mean, we went 10. I think anybody going 10-2 in the league, you're in.
Oh, you're
right.
In.
Like, there's no question about that.
Or Vandy might lose every game the entire rest of the season.
They could. They could be.
I mean, like, you just don't know.
They could be 5-7. That's also a possibility. I don't think they will be, but you don't know.
Yeah, it's hard to tell now.
Did y'all see Johnny Manziel has been mentoring Pavia?
I did.
Yes.
Did you also hear about Johnny Manziel in the South Carolina game?
Yeah.
Saw the headline, didn't read it.
We'll hit that on the other side, as we'll dive into some of the other topics around college football as well. As we navigate your bye week, it is Thursday here on the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour, presented by Firehouse Subs here on the game.
him, and then
I will say
kept
this.
your game
All right,
in
I'm not
Atlanta.
going to give the whole thing away. But South Carolina weekend, those boys in that locker room, from what I have coming in that game, are going to be more motivated than any team, any game in the last 15 years of Texas A&M. I got a real special treat coming for the Aggies, November 15th. Fire. Program changing for us, in my opinion.
Welcome back in Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs, Tyler West and Chris. That was the voice of Johnny Manziel talking the other day on Shannon Sharp's podcast about a surprise that he has for his A&M Aggies the day they play Carolina coming up on November the 15th. Program changing type of surprise. I'm guessing it's not Drake coming into the locker room before the game, but what could it be, I guess is the question.
Yeah, what the heck is he talking about?
Not just a cool surprise, a program-changing one.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much money he still has. He's just going to drop a bag in there and be like, hey,
they already got a lot of money.
They got plenty of money already, but, I mean, you talk about program changing, you think money, right?
Well, he could be. He could also be, extremely exaggerating that.
True.
But
no.
You know what stands out about that when you pair it with some others? South Carolina is becoming a lot of teams' Super Bowl somehow.
It was the highlighted game for Vanderbilt.
Yeah.
Game 3. Got A&M now.
Illinois won their Super Bowl last year. Biggest win in program history.
Illinois hung a banner for that Citrus Bowl.
Yeah.
Tennessee a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's a good point.
Weird.
I mean, kind of interesting, right?
Yeah.
Like that says a little bit that so many teams are circling the South Carolina game.
Does Johnny care that much about the Bonham Trophy?
I've never.
Have they found it yet?
I've never seen opponents taking pictures at midfield after a game at South Carolina the way Vandy was.
Yeah, because none of those guys were alive the last time they did that.
Like that does say a little bit about, usually in the past it would have been South Carolina taking pictures for winning a game at, I don't know, like the Swamp or something. You know what I'm saying? Like, so very, very interesting. I have no idea what that could be, though.
Firehouse Subs text line 803-404-6100. Give us your best theory on what Johnny Manziel's program-changing gift to A&M is going to be. And again, the significance of, like, because he could have said, this weekend they're playing Mississippi State. So I'm going to bring him for the Mississippi State game. Why the South Carolina game? Why is that?
That's what I'm saying.
Is that because he can't acquire it until then?
Yeah, he might need time.
He might need time
Still
to get
building it.
Whatever this is, or, get it through customs or something like that. I don't know.
Some of the things that I've seen on social as to what it could be, I can't say. We would get fined.
Yeah, well,
taken off air.
Again, Johnny lives a life, not one that ended up being super successful at football after the college level, but he's never lost a party. I'll say that much.
He has fun. Guys, let me give a shout out to real quick my guy Uncle Dougie down listening in Myrtle Beach.
Nice.
100.3. So
shout out Uncle Dougie.
Yep. There you go.
Now, did you call him that after Dougie Fresh, or did he have that nickname before?
Well, it's my wife's uncle.
Okay.
Who calls him Uncle Dougie. So
gotcha. Okay.
I call him that too.
Fair enough. Rodney says Johnny football bobbleheads. I don't know if that's program changing. I don't know how that would fire the team up. Hey guys, here's a bobblehead of me.
I mean, that's funny, but it can't be that.
Because you're going to hype it up. You got to deliver. And I imagine, because it said locker room before the game, so is he buying new uniforms or something? I don't know.
That will be hilarious if he does this, whatever this program-changing thing is, and then South Carolina wins. You know that it's already on Justin King and the socials team. They're like going to be
ready.
They're going to be ready
troll
to
mode.
pounce. They're going to be in super troll mode if you can win.
Michael says he's having T-shirts made, but they won't be delivered until the week of the game. And that doesn't
with his face on it.
That doesn't fire you up. Which like
program change.
It's not. You can't. It's for the team, right? This is emphasizing it's for the team. Something he's going to give to them in the locker room that's going to fire them up and change the program.
Do you think Mike Elko knows about it? Like, what if Mike Elko's sitting in his office and somebody goes in and says, "Coach, Johnny did something." He's like, "Great, what'd he do this time?"
Johnny's got that bag of stuff again.
What does an interaction between Elko, who seems like a very no nonsense, just football coach kind of guy, what does that look like with Johnny Manziel?
Mike Elko is a hard-nosed social studies teacher. That's what he seems like to me.
He does look like that. He and Pete Limbo look like they'd be on the same high school teaching staff, down the hall from each other. One teaches history, One teaches, I don't know, maybe economics or something.
Pete's a lot more gregarious. He's the one where, like, when you're talking before the school year about which you're like hoping for a certain teacher. Everybody
wants Mr. Limbo.
Yeah, you want Mr. Limbo for sure.
Limbo is teaching history, though, right?
He is teaching history. I feel like Elko could be like an economics type math teacher, maybe. You know what I mean? Very straightforward. There's no gray area when it comes to math. You're either right or you're wrong. Like, he's that kind of guy.
That is a good point.
True.
What else?
He's definitely the show your work kind of teacher.
Yes. What else is going on with around the? You said you had some other things going on.
Well, and we haven't had as much time to bounce around some of the greater topics of college football, and Wes and I got into this in the last hour with Bill Connolly's, S&P, not S&P Plus, but the rankings of Power 4 quarterbacks, 1 to 68 after the month of the season. And it's so interesting because Sellers was 27 out of 68, which, again, kind of seemed fair with how the season's gone so far. But so many of the quarterbacks that we talked about in the offseason as Heisman favorites, first-round picks, like him, like Nussmeier, like Klubnik, like Arch Manning, for crying out loud, all have underperformed or underwhelmed to some degree, some even to an extreme degree, like Klubnik, through the first 5 games of the season.
I can't decide what I think about this because I listened to Sark's comments and I thought it was a well thought out answer and a very valid theory. Now, some people have pointed out, okay, well, sure, but what about some of these other quarterbacks who have gone like Mensah from Darian Mensah goes from Tulane to Duke?
Wait, what were his comments?
Sark?
Yeah.
Sark.
Do you want me to play the comments? I do have the comments.
Yeah, that'd be better.
This is Sark being asked about quarterbacks, the pressure being put on them, and the development earlier on this week.
I think one thing that came out of this weekend as well, and I'm looking around the country at the high-profile players, I don't know if any of them are living up to what everybody said they were supposed to be. But we're in this era right now of everybody's got a phone, so everybody's got Twitter. There's 9,000 podcasts going on. The coverage over college football is more and more intense than it's ever been. And so players are getting put up on these pedestals really quickly in their careers. And I felt like this weekend I could feel some guys pressing, not so different maybe than Arch was pressing early on, to where they feel like they have to live up to, whether it's whatever they're allegedly making through NIL or because this is what the media is saying I'm supposed to be or I'm not being. College football players are getting critiqued and criticized more now than they ever have in the past too. And so this is a different era that we're in. And I think that we've got to do a great job as coaches of, I don't want to say shelter, but we got to protect our guys.
So that's what Sark had to say about the development that you were talking about there, Chris.
I think there's some other guys you could point to, though, and say, well, that guy's playing well, or he's, Darian Mensah, who transferred. And I've seen some other people point out, well, it seems like some of the guys that have been at a place a little bit longer, maybe they're feeling, but I came back, I've been here. Cade Klubnik, he's been at Clemson for quite a while, and there's this expectation of cleaning up the things that he's struggled with and taking that next step, and he hasn't. I think all the situations are probably, different. I mean, Lenoris Sellers has not had the type of year that we thought he would, but he, missed part of a game. I don't think he was 100% himself against Missouri. What we saw against Kentucky was kind of really, frankly, what we expected to see from him, and we saw it, and that was the most recent game, the most recent evidence. So, I don't know. Also, guys, pros, maybe college players aren't used to it as much, but NIL's been around a few years. The numbers have gone up. Pros are out there on contract, too, playing. So, I don't really know what to make of it.
Well, I do think if you turn on a college football Saturday, pick a random game, you're going to see at times some really sloppy play overall. Not just quarterbacks. You're going to see a lot of penalties. You're going to see at times a disjointed game. Some of it is not even always the QB. It's the fact that you have so many transfers these days and so many guys trying to settle in. You really don't have that situation where maybe there's 10 guys. Oh, we returned 10 starters on defense, and they've all played in this scheme. They all understand all the ins and outs of this. You don't have preseason games, so there is no time to work out the kinks. And you don't really have that well, hey, I've been throwing to this wide receiver for 2 or 3 years for, a lot of guys. Yes, Arch has been at Texas for a few years, but, the receiving core has changed around him. So I think all those things, like football, y'all ever go to an all-star game? Y'all ever go to, like, the Shrine Bowl or something? They have to dumb it down just from a scheme standpoint because everybody runs different things. Everybody has different names. Everybody has different intricacies to how they do things. Football is not like pickup basketball where you just go out there and play and you can play some form of the game. It's ugly if everybody's not on the same page. So how much has the transfer portal affected just the overall quality, especially early in the season, of some of these games?
We'll come back. We'll wrap up the hour. Let us know what you think Johnny Manziel's getting A&M ahead of the Carolina game on the Firehouse Subs line. 803-404-6100 is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour, presented by Firehouse Subs on your Thursday on the Game. Welcome back in. Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler West Chris wrapping up the hour here on your Thursday on the game. No Gamecock football this weekend, but the high school football scoreboard show will be back tomorrow night with Elijah Campbell and Justin Hall from 7 until 11 p.m. as they bring you all the latest news and highlights from what's going on around the Midlands and the state when it comes to high school football. We asked the question in the last segment of what do you think Johnny Manziel is bringing the Texas A&M Aggies prior to their game against Carolina that will be program changing. A lot of people suggesting on the text line, drug-related. Don't think he's going to go that route. This is actually kind of a reasonable answer. Nameless Texture says, I bet he announced his own scholarship, but an NIL, so somebody's going to win the Johnny Manziel NIL award / scholarship. I could see something like that. I don't know if that completely changes the program because, again, they've got plenty of NIL money, but I think you might be on some kind of path there.
I thought the drugs answer was maybe closer to
maybe.
accurate. I mean, but seriously, this is definitely going to be a disappointment, right? Like this is going to be completely overhyped.
What? Because I'm like, what could really he do that would legitimately change the program? Is he announcing his own statue being put up? I don't know.
No, why would the guys care about that?
They wouldn't. That's the thing. Like in his mind, does he feel like that changes the program? No. I don't know.
I got nothing.
Johnny's Johnny.
Yeah,
Johnny's Johnny. Yeah, I have nothing else. Well, we're just gonna have to wait and see.
Yeah, we got a little over a month till we find out what Johnny's program-defining gift to Texas A&M is. Again, on the bye week, got a lot of games coming up this weekend, and we'll get into some specifics of these games coming up tomorrow. But one team I think that has earned a lot of respect through the first couple weeks of the regular season. I don't know if you guys probably didn't get a chance to catch any of their loss to Tennessee last week, but like Mississippi State, I think a lot of us wrote them off as like maybe the worst team in the SEC again, considering the fact that Lebby has a long rebuild ahead of him. They very really could have been 5-0. They had a couple of turnovers that turned into touchdowns for Tennessee, took the game to overtime. Like, they're playing really good football right now. And, I mean, hats off to him because we thought that was going to be a long, drawn-out process, but he's got those guys rolling. Beat Arizona State a couple weeks ago. Like, that's one of the better stories in college football right now, I feel like.
You had the Cowbells were going. They kind of did a good job, I think, of getting the fans up for that game and making it a big-time SEC atmosphere. And, yeah, I mean, they were right there in it the whole way. Really, maybe should have won the game. And I think you have just another example. Like, here's my question. Is whoever is the top of the chain in the SEC, the quote, elite couple of teams, or is there an elite couple of teams, and how do they compare to the top of the Big Ten? Mm-hmm. Or is this a situation where the SEC is just deeper, like everybody can beat everybody for the most part, but the upper level of what you're doing is not quite what the Big Ten has right now? Because here's the thing. I mean, is Bama... Like, Texas has not been what we thought they were going to be.
No.
But Bama still, we can't forget what Florida State did to them.
Sure.
And then Florida State turns around and loses at Virginia. So, I don't know. Then Florida State's going to beat Miami this week.
That kind of seems par for the course of what this year is.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, we said it so many times, so hard to tell, what you're going to get from week to week in this crazy sport. But Mississippi State is a good, I mean, we came into the year, I'll say but I think other people probably thought the same thing. You looked at it and said, Mississippi State, they're probably team 16. And they're not.
No.
I don't know by the end of the year who will be team 16, but right now
could be, though.
They could be.
They could be.
Right now they're not.
I think it's Kentucky.
I think Kentucky's leading the charge on that right now.
What about, how low is Auburn going to finish? They've got a pretty tough road ahead. What are they? Have they won 3 games overall?
Well, they haven't won a conference game. They're 0-2 in conference, and
0-2 in conference.
They can't convert a third down to save their life.
Hugh Freeze is not helping himself by saying, "Yeah, we probably should have run the ball more." I'm not. You got you got 18 play callers,
and whatever he's whispering to his quarterback is not working.
No,
and he's playing too much golf. That's going to come back to bite him again, I'm sure.
Well, and Auburn is not completely lacking talent, guys. It's not like this is just – you look at some of those NFL lists in terms of guys, that top 100 that the East-West game put out before the season, lots of Auburn guys on there, man. So it's not like they're just a completely dead-in-the-water program when it comes to talent.
Yeah.
So
their defense is really good. Auburn's is. But they're just – they're kind of, I mean, they just played. They're kind of what Oklahoma was last year. Like good defense, can't score.
They'll hold you to 17 points, but they only score 10.
Got one of the best wide receivers in the country. Cam Coleman,
and their quarterback holds onto the ball a long time too. That's becoming a problem.
Yeah, so I'm fascinated to see these next few weeks. I mean, it's just we'll get some answers, but like you said, Wes, they're all in a blender right now.
Take a deeper look at Week 6 coming up tomorrow as we get to enjoy some bye-week football this upcoming weekend. That'll do it for the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Halftime show with myself and Bill Gunner coming up next on your Thursday here on The Game.